Video Training Initiative, Fiscal Management Training Overview. The following NUL training video will provide an overview of the accounting policies and procedures relative to the submission of monthly invoices for payment of program-related expenses. During this time, you will become familiar with the proper format necessary for the completion of the submission process. Grant history. The National Urban League receives grant funds authorized by the Workforce Investment Act from the U.S. Department of Labor Employment and Training Administration. These funds are given to implement specific programs. The NUL depends on these grants from federal and local sources and is obligated to comply with the full requirements outlined in the funding guidelines. Circular A-122 gives specific guidelines for the reporting of the use of funds given. Deviation from such guidelines will result in unfavorable actions and may hinder future funding. Responsibility of fiscal managers. It is the responsibility of the fiscal managers to give direction and oversight with regards to the financial management of each affiliate location. The fiscal manager is responsible to implement and maintain a financial management system that provides 1. Effective control over and accountability for all funds to assure they are used solely for authorized purposes. 2. To compare cash outlays with budget amounts. 3. To prepare accurate, current, and complete disclosure of the financial results of each federally sponsored project or program in accordance with the reporting requirements of the program. 4. To monitor procedures to minimize processing time of monthly invoices. Necessity of format, goals. To meet requirements, requests for expenses must remain consistent with federal rules and circulars and have adequate documentation. To maintain a high level of fiscal integrity, all requests across each program must maintain the same standard and follow the same accounting rules. Main components to address in monthly invoice. The 4 components to address for each line item listed on your monthly invoice are as follows. Number 1. The specific expense line item. Number 2. Summary sheets showing the exact calculation of the line item. Number 3. Backup documentation supporting the expense amount and purpose of each expense. Number 4. A copy of the payment made. Let's look in detail at each component. 1. Line item. This is the line item expense listed on the cover sheet. This number is the total amount being taken from the total budget on one particular line. 2. Summary showing calculation of line item number. Use this sheet to show how the line item number was calculated. This section will also show a clear explanation of expenses that have been allocated across several programs. This summary sheet must match actual numbers shown on hard copies of your supporting documents. 3. Backup documentation. This will include all supporting documents to support the expense. Later, we'll cover specific items required for each category. 4. Some form of a proof of payment must accompany each expense request. Physical presentation of final report. Report will show the first page as the expense cover sheet. Behind the cover sheet, each section of the budget is shown with expenses presented in order by line item. Each section will have a one-page label. Each line that consists of more than one item will have a summary sheet showing calculation of sources related to that number. This will show as a printed spreadsheet or register tape calculations. Each source will have its own documentation. Each source that is spread across 2 or more programs will present a clear summary showing percentage distribution across each program. Place supporting documents in the order that it appears on the invoice cover sheet. If there's a line item which consists of a sum of different expenses represented on different invoices, provide a summary sheet that lists the items and their amounts. Clearly annotate each invoice with the name of the line item in which the expense will be included. Always include your calculation for any expenses within the invoice. Never assume the manager or auditor will know which items are included in an expense amount. Backup documentation required. In order to receive funding, each expense must contain the proper supporting documents. This will vary based on the type of expense. Proper documentation will include the following for specific expense categories. Specific backup items. Salaries. Under salaries and personnel costs, line items are supported by 1. Signed timesheets with supervisor approvals. Be sure to include time allocation for all personnel that are working across multiple programs. 2. Payroll registers. Be sure to include payroll statements showing all employees. For all employees showing a salary that is different from the budgeted amount, explanation of the adjustment must accompany the invoice. 3. Salary allocation schedule. For all employees working across multiple programs, provide a summary sheet showing the salary allocation as it's spread across various programs. Totals from the salary allocation sheet must match the total salaries on the payroll register. 4. Copy of canceled checks or direct deposit. This will provide proof of payment to the employee. Fringe benefits. Under fringe benefits, the line item will show amount paid. Your summary page will show line calculations of each employee in each category. Summary page will also show percentage allocations if benefit expenses are spread across programs. Amount shown must match amount shown on payroll register and backup documentation sheets. Your backup documentation for fringe benefits will include 1. Invoices for benefits. This includes health, dental, Medicare, and other benefits. 2. Payroll register showing Social Security and federal and state unemployment deductions. 3. Statement showing charges for pension and workers' comp payments. This section will also include copy of payment used for fringe benefits. Travel and transportation. For travel and transportation-related expenses, each line item will show a summary page showing the calculation of individual travel expenses. Totals shown on the summary page will match totals shown on backup documentation. For this category, backup documentation will include 1. Starting and ending destination. 2. Trip purpose. 3. Authorized reimbursement request. 4. Calculations of mileage and per diem rates. 5. Allocation summary if expenses are split across programs. This section will also include a copy of payment used to pay travel reimbursement, program supplies, and materials. For supplies and materials-related expenses, each line item will have a summary page showing the calculation of individual purchases. Summary sheet will show total amount of invoices and bills. Summary sheet will also show allocation of expenses across programs for each bill. Invoices listed on the summary page will match invoices provided in the backup documentation. For this category, backup documentation will include 1. Purchase orders, invoices, and bills where applicable. 2. Description and purpose of supplies purchased. This section will also include copy of payment used to pay for supplies. Contractual services. The section for contractual services will show that services charged under the grant were allowable and within budget constraints. This section will include a summary page showing how the line item was calculated. This will include all services purchased during the period. The backup documentation will provide backup for the expenses shown on the summary page. Backup documentation for this section will include 1. Description and purpose of service. 2. Signed authorized request. 3. Signed contractual agreement. 4. Copies of bills and invoices. 5. Summary page if service was allocated across several programs. Education Training Interventions. The purpose of this section is to provide accurate and substantial documentation supporting expenses for training. This section will also include a summary sheet showing calculation of the expense line. In addition, the backup required is 1. A complete description of the training agenda. 2. Course descriptions. 3. Sign-in sheets. 4. Consultant-trainer agreement. 5. Invoices or bills from trainers. 6. Allocation schedule of training is split across several programs. Under Stipend section, each backup will include 1. Summary sheet showing calculation of all stipends. 2. Copy of payment distribution log. 3. Explanation of reason for each stipend. 4. Copy of payment. 5. Other documentation relevant to type of stipend. Common expenses. Expenses under other common areas will follow the same format as those mentioned. Each expense must address the four main components. Number 1, the specific expense line item. Number 2, summary sheet showing the exact calculation of the line item. Number 3, backup documentation supporting the expense amount and purpose. Number 4, a copy of the payment made. This will include expenses for telephone, equipment rental, legal services, background checks, postage and shipping, needs-based payments, marketing and advertising, printing and copying, office rent, insurance, and participation cost. Indirect costs. If an affiliate is approved, federal cost rate or ICR percentage can be charged with no documentation needed. If not approved, indirect expenses up to 10% of personnel can be charged, but documentation for expenses and allocation will accompany invoice. PBS implementation. Monthly invoices will receive a score based on compliance to required format, documentation, and completeness. Points will range from 0 to 400, with 400 being a perfect score. You will receive a PBT document showing the makeup of the scoring system. This ranking system is used to help affiliates to 1. Highlight areas of emphasis in the reporting process, 2. Monitor improvements and declines, 3. To initiate consultation and improvement meetings, 4. Publish affiliate results and compare practices within programs, 5. Identify small problems proactively. The goal of each office is to maintain a perfect score of 400. Upon submission of monthly invoices, requests for corrections are provided in writing via email. Corrections are time-sensitive and may affect the total funds received. Conclusion. Thank you for taking the time to review these materials. Your fiscal managers at NUL are available to assist you. Questions regarding the reporting format or required documentation should be directed to your manager for discussion. Use this video for training and implementation and as a guide for future submissions.